Everybody has their own local universe inside of them, and we all create our own reality in conjunction with others who work in our realm of frequency. The Sirians who decide to proceed with these inhumane processes also create their own living hell and in the long run will eradicate themselves. Each being needs to work out their own inner conflicts, that's just how it works, and needs to be understood by the evolving human. Don't interfere too much with others' unhandled conflicts and grudge games, it will lead you nowhere beside towards eradication of self, literally. Forgive where you can and move on. In the meantime, help those who need a push in the right direction. But don't interfere with their learning lessons. Like a certain native Indian said, a true warrior knows when to walk away. The Pleiadians lecture the following. Because of the time locks that were put upon the portals here, and because the corridors of time are owned, those out in the cosmos are not able to find Earth. Its light of existence was erased. A different electromagnetic spectrum, a harmless one that does not register the kind of consciousness Earth has, was put here so that Earth could not be found. Earth was covered up, quarantined. If only one road exists in and out, and it is locked, then commerce is forbidden from entering time corridor, and it is cut off completely from all other influences. The bottom line here is that the Sirian overlords owned the corridors of time from the moment they locked us into 3D. Earth became invisible for visitors in general, they simply couldn't find her. She was hidden in a frequency band and not commonly used, and if someone was looking in that range, Earth was still cloaked and extremely hard to find unless you knew how. They own the portals that come to the planet and leave it. We are sitting in the middle of Peshmetan, one of the main galactic highways, and we're blocking it. And what is more, they use our energies to tighten and strengthen the grid. How? Due to that we vibrate on a locked-in frequency, and the more chaos and tumult, the tighter the grid, the less chance there is to penetrate it. Still, there are those pillars of light, which means the cloaking was never perfect, and never will be. The grid will never be repaired and made perfect. The Dark Lords couldn't do it in the past and they certainly can't do it now, because it's too late. 7 billion people are vibrating in unison towards a higher consciousness, you can almost hear the musical pitch change upwards, like when you tune a guitar to a higher note. After the destruction of the original Terra during the War of the Titans, the Sirians had to reconstruct the whole planet, which we will talk more about in the next paper. Before the genetic engineering and manipulation began, there was no grid around Earth. It was basically set up here more than 500,000 years ago to seal Earth off from the rest of the universe, while the frequency fence, which locked our ancestors into 3D, was set up about 300,000 years ago. The Sirians' own founders, the ones who worked with them, such as the Aryan called Enki, and the Sirian female known as Ninhursag, Ninki, or just Nin, recreated much of the fauna and flora from seeds they had stored since earlier, but they were not the ones who recreated the living library. About 500,000 years ago, when our planet was really coming to life again, whole civilizations were inserted on Earth via time portals, by first penetrating the grid through the pillars of light. This was not an easy task due to the artificial grid, but it was done, nonetheless. These events are quite extensively explained in Barbara Marciniak's channeled book, Earth. Pleiadian Keys to the Living Library. The Pleiadians tell us that the planet at this time was owned by the Sirians, although they call them Lizzies in the book, after a devastating space war, the Titan Wars, which the Lizzies won. However, those who cared for the living library, the original founders, reinserted both the library and civilizations that existed here side by side with the Sirians. For civilizations that had, instead of exploring the real history of mankind and the ramifications of the alien influences, we have been designed and distracted in such a way that we'd rather look into things that do not matter and which will eventually dig our own graves. The question is, if we let our own ignorance be our nemesis, will there be another civilization after us which can interpret the clues of our existence, or are we the last civilization on Earth? We have a lot of important choices to make, so please, mankind, stop watching reality shows and violent sports on TV. Or entertain yourselves with the newest cell phones or other high-tech devices. These are the technologies of the gods, which have brought them into their own hell. Do we really want to share their hell, letting them remain the ones holding the pitchfork? Some of these civilizations here on Earth existed for 500 years, others for 1,000 years or more, but most of them were eventually fought off by the Sirians and disappeared. However, they did not cease to exist, because on a multidimensional level they are always existing. Sometimes, the founders inserted a new civilization on top of the old one, and archeologists who find remnants of them today think they are totally separate from each other. Although they may not be able to figure out where they came from so suddenly, there are a lot of missing links. In reality, they are just layers upon layers, and when the time portals open again, like they do now, all these civilizations will start existing simultaneously as time collapses and timelines start merging at the end of a cycle. Clues to all these civilizations can be found all around the planet today. Some above ground, others underground. This will be more real to people when we break free from what exopolitical writer Neil Freer calls the God spell, and we can look at things from other time perspectives, which are unique not only to 3D.